Hello students, today we are going to talk a very important concept in empowerment, which is human rights based approach. Human rights based approach is an essential tool when we are talking about empowerment and development. We know that empowerment enables us to act freely, think freely, and work in the direction of realizing our true potential and also taking decisions. But this all is possible when an environment is created. Human rights based approach creates an environment in which individuals are not treated with any discrimination, and on the basis of equality and participation they are given all their rights, the fundamental human rights. We all know that human rights have always advocated for equality, peace, dignity, justice, and freedom for all sections of society. They are based on the principles of non discrimination, and they are aimed at avoiding and preventing violence against marginalized and vulnerable sections of society and letting the differential groups live their life freely. Human rights based approach advocates for implementation and enforcement of human rights which are accorded by international and human rights in the country. And the application of HRBA is done through international agencies, international governments, governments of the country, international NGOs, and since it is seen that governments are not very keen in enforcing the rights of marginalized and vulnerable sections of the society, so mainly it becomes the roles and responsibilities of civil society and NGOs in promoting human rights. The various approaches which are linked to HRBA emphasize the importance of contextual factors that lead to implementation of HRBA. Let us consider the historical background of this very important concept. We all know that after World War II, there was massive attack on the human rights of people, and it was realized that it is not in the interest of the society and people in general to go for war. Particularly after World War II, human rights gained prominence at the global level and became an instrument of transformation and justice. But human rights in development and empowerment were only casually linked until 1986 when the General Assembly adopted the Declaration on the Rights to Development, and this declaration was affirmed by the World Conference on Human Rights in Vienna in the year 1993. Soon after that, democracy, human rights, and sustainable development were closely linked, and the broader concept of human rights came into existence and was taken up by many UN bodies such as UNDP and UNICEF. As a result, in 2003, several UN bodies convened workshops on the matters, which in turn led to the production of a statement entitled The Human Rights Based Approach to Development Cooperation towards a Common Understanding among the United Nations agencies. But it did not just remain a very important approach of United Nations only, but it was also adopted by many NGOs and INGOs working in the field of human rights protection. Even European Union also advocates mainstream human rights protection. The definition of human rights based approach goes as it is a conceptual framework for the process of human development that is normatively based on international human rights standards and operationally directed to promoting and protecting human rights. As far as implementation of human rights based approach to development is concerned, the rights holders are expected to be active participants in matters relating to their livelihood. Thus, advocacy and dialogues over rights with duty bearers are central elements whereby the right holders may claim their rights. So, we will be further discussing about the major concepts that are defined in this definition in the further slides. Human rights based approach is based on the core principles of human rights, which are universality and inalienability, indivisibility, interdependence and interrelatedness, equality and non-discrimination, participation and inclusion, and accountability and rule of law. Particularly, the last three principles, that is equality and non-discrimination, participation and inclusion, accountability and rule of law, form the core principles of human rights-based approach. To understand how these three principles are core principles of human rights-based approach, we need to consider certain views on this. The first view is rights versus needs. So, right-based development thinking does not see development effort as part of a charity or alms-giving enterprise, but as part of efforts to fulfill rights. So when it is right, it is the claim of the people. They are not given to the beneficiaries as a charity. They are the rights and they are entitled to receive those rights. It also marks the shift from traditional development assistance approach to a human rights-based approach. This implies conceptually that the recipients are transformed from passive recipients of alms to active right holders. So this gives the power in the hands of right holders, the beneficiaries, the recipients, that they are not receiving the development assistance as a part of charity, but it is a shift from that traditional idea to the new idea of being active right holders, and it ensures their entitlement to all development aspects as well as basic facilities. The concept of right holds ground as long as there is a corresponding obligation. So, if one person has a right, the right becomes obligation for the other person to ensure that the rights are ensured to the rightful person. And in any case, if rights are not given to the right holder, then there should be a mechanism to claim that right. Rights against the duty bearers comprise of political, social, and economic rights so that they are better able to take care of their own interests. This is also directly linked to the concept of empowerment. For empowerment, it is important that people have political, social, and economic power so that they are able to take decisions which make their life potentially important and fruitful as they desire. Right holders and duty bearers. Right holders are those individuals that have particular entitlement, and this entitlement is in respect to the duty bearers who are supposed to fulfill those rights. So the right holders have to expect that their entitlements are fulfilled by the duty bearers. Duty bearers can be both state and non-state actors, but right holders are every individual who are residing in the society, and they have it as an obligation against them to take consideration of their special context and help them realize their true potential. These groups could be women, children, girls, ethnic minorities, indigenous people, adults and children with special needs, migrants, youth, LGBT community, and those who are victims of violence. This diagram will help us further understand the concept or the relationship between duty bearers and right holders. So we see at the bottom there are right holders. These right holders, when they participate in the entire process of development, they have a demand from the duty bearers for their rights, for their entitlements. It is a demand, it is not the charity. They are supposed to have it. They are entitled to have access to those things which are their rights. And then duty bearers are in turn accountable for fulfilling their obligations to whom? To the right holders. This entire process is a very democratic process, and this democratic fabric gives power in the hands of right holders, that means the citizens of the country. There are 6 important premises of HRBA which have to be taken into consideration when any development and empowerment approach is being carried out. As already mentioned, the governments many a times fail to ensure human right based approach in their initiatives, and it becomes the responsibility of civil society, INGOs and NGOs to ensure that all the activities of the government are rooted in the HRBA. So the first premise says that development is not a part of charity but an effort to fulfill rights. It does away the traditional approach of development, which was helping others as a form of charity. Now, the entitlement to development are an effort on the part of duty bearers to fulfill the rights of the right holders. The second premise is that it makes sense to talk about rights only when there is corresponding obligation. So it puts the right holders in a position in which they are supposed to be helped by the duty bearers, and it is the obligation of duty bearers to help and support the right holders in getting the obligations, or the failure on the part of duty bearers to fulfill obligations entitles the right holders to have claim, and through this claim they can access to public authorities like police, like courts, like their political representatives for getting their rights fulfilled. This is explained by the third premise, which states that a right-based approach also entails supporting the right holders in claiming their rights. The focus will also be on facilitating right holders access to services and to ensuring their participation as free citizens in matters relevant to their livelihood. The fourth premise states that discrimination and inequality are the biggest cause of poverty. HRBA states, HRBA, but it is not just poverty, it is also marginalization and vulnerability of individual and groups, which is an important consideration in HRBA. HRBA approach is based on the premise that discrimination and inequality are among the most important causes of poverty, and poverty can be removed when its first important principle, which is discrimination and inequality, are not adhered to. HRBA is instrumentalized through activism and advocacy. They are the important measures of HRBA, and they are used to influence decision making in favor of vulnerable and marginalized groups of society. Activism and advocacy are to be taken for participation and inclusion, which is the second important principle of HRBA approach. Activism helps to target measures which influence decision making of citizens at local, regional, national, and international levels. The fourth important premise is that HRBA and development can be directly secured by ensuring rights to citizens. Legal rights help to implement HR. So, human rights based approach ensures that everyone gets their human right as not form of charity but as their entitlement, which will go on a long way in ensuring a better society for people. So thank you, students, for listening to this lecture. For your comments and queries, you can send a message to me. Thank you.